Good afternoon. My name is Marguerite Schultz. I'm the owner and principal psychologist of Living Well Psychology Clinic on the Central Coast of New South Wales. So today we're talking all things happiness, and I'm so excited to be part of the Happiness Flash Mob 2018, where a whole bunch of us psychologists and mental health professionals across Australia have teamed up to put some resources together to talk about happiness and how we can thread happiness into our day-to-day lives, how we can pay attention to things that will increase our happiness, and how we can pull our attention away from things that decrease our happiness. So we're talking all things happiness. Welcome to this vlog. Don't forget to click the hashtag and you'll be able to tune into other contributions as well. So I'm sharing briefly on the attitude of happiness, and I love talking about this because attitude is something that is within our power to control, which means anyone can be part of this positive change, and anybody can make a decision to tweak their attitude and thereby increase their experience of happiness by applying a couple of the steps that we'll talk about today. Now, obviously life throws curveballs at us, and we're not talking about living in a state of Pollyanna-like a lack of reality, but it's not the stressors that come at us that define our state of being. It's how we respond to those stresses. It's how we relate to those challenges and obstacles that will correlate with our sense of quality of life and state of happiness. So the greatest thing about our awesome brains is that we are able to train them. They respond so beautifully to input, and by putting correct input into them, we can directly change our experience of life on a day-to-day basis. For some people, you may find that your brain has had a conditioned response towards negativity, and that might have come from upbringing or stresses in your life or things that you've gone through that have conditioned you away from positivity and happiness. And today, just bringing our focus and our attitude back into a space where we can start to look at the positive and reset our attitude towards a lifestyle of happiness, because happiness really can be a lifestyle. It's a growth mindset. It's a mindset that we can choose to have whilst still facing the reality of life. So some ideas for cultivating an attitude of happiness. Number one, this sounds really simple, but choose to be happy. Make a decision. Decide to be happy, because there's some brain training that will probably follow. So it's not always going to be easy. Initially, you have to set your path, and then you have to stick to your path before that habit is entrenched. So I'd love us to challenge ourselves to set our course towards cultivating an attitude of happiness. So for some, we might need to retrain our brain a fair bit, and for other people, it's just a tweak and a reset that will be needed. But make the decision, even now while you're watching this, make the decision that for the next day, the next 2 days, the next 7 days, you're going to practice these things so that you can start to cultivate a happiness mindset and live with an attitude of happiness. So the good thing about happiness is that it kind of begets more happiness when you live from a positive mindset, and if you're in a happy state of mind a lot of the time, it actually changes your perspective of how you see the world, how you process stress, and therefore you're more likely to be able to lean into happiness as things come across your path because you've started with a happiness mindset. So the second thing, so one is decide. The second thing is tune into the good. You have to decide to put a favorable interpretation on things. You have to be like a bloodhound for the positive. You've got to search it out. You've got to decide to commit to cultivating a spirit of optimism. Look for the good, because this will impact immensely on your quality of life. And obviously, in any given moment, we can tune into either the negative or the positive. It's actually quite easy to find negative things. It's actually quite easy to find things to be offended by, things that can fill us with frustration and a sense of helplessness or stuckness. But again, the great thing about our brain is that we can retrain it towards what's called a growth mindset, where you can live from a space of peace and genuine joy, and from this space, creativity and problem solving can actually flow. So to increase our experience of happiness, you have to look for the good. In any situation, train your brain to find the positives and to seek out what is good about this moment, even this challenge. Adopt this mindset of searching for the positive. That's a lovely challenge that you can set for yourself. In fact, our stress levels, as measured by the presence of cortisol and other stress hormones in our body, are significantly impacted or regulated by our perception of whether we can cope with a given stressor that's coming at us. And living in a state of happiness and positivity increases our sense of competency to process a stressor. So happiness directly correlates with self-efficacy, because if you're happy and positive and you believe that you can problem solve and you can face a challenge head on and get to the other side of it in one piece and still full of joy and a delight in your heart, your self-efficacy is going to rise, which means next time you face a challenge, you know you've got this and you can do it. Point number 3, be a giver. So probably a lot of us have heard the saying, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And there is so much truth in this saying. Giving feels good. It keeps us connected to our environment. It keeps us connected to our community. It fills us with a sense of belonging and puts a check on our perspective. And it helps us to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Now, all of these things are going to foster happiness. So being a giver makes a big difference, and it makes a big difference in your sense of intrinsic reward in your day-to-day life, and a big sense of contributing to your overall happiness. Number 4, decide to be unoffendable and ditch the criticism. Now, this isn't a small job. This is a pretty big job. But I'd love you to do a little social experiment with yourself where you commit, again, either 24, 48 hours, a whole week, where you just decide you will not be offendable. A full 7 days is a great challenge, and I can almost guarantee that your happiness factor will increase significantly. So instead of being easily offended, which of course can happen with a fixed mindset, make a decision towards happiness. Make a decision to have an attitude of grace and forgiveness. Overlook offense where you can. Assume the best about people. Now, obviously, we're not talking about situations which are abusive or inappropriate. We're just talking about the day-to-day offenses that come across our path, the frustrations that come across our path. What I'm suggesting is that you have an attitude of letting things go where appropriate. Choose to be positive, assume the best about people, and in the day-to-day instances that come across your path, decide to have an attitude of grace, because that goes a long way in keeping your happiness tank nice and full. Offense will drain your tank pretty quickly. Getting bitter and frustrated will drain your happiness tank pretty quickly. So decide, even if you just commit to 2 days where you don't make a criticism about anyone, anything, even the smallest thing, and you decide to be completely unoffendable, you'll notice a difference in your sense of peace and in your sense of happiness. And you can train your brain to overlook these cues of offense and frustration where it's reasonable to do so. Okay, so we've done 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th tip is, when things go wrong, stay in a growth mindset. So a growth mindset basically just means that you learn to teach your mind and your brain to frame mishaps, problems, disappointments, setbacks as learning opportunities and growth opportunities, rather than as complete obstacles to peace and joy, rather than as complete roadblocks. So set your mind to that path. Number 6, this is our final one, is spread happiness intentionally. Be intentional about taking your happiness bucket and sloshing it around. I read my children a beautiful book called Have You Filled a Bucket Today? And I think as grown-ups, if we walked around with that attitude, have we filled a bucket, including our own bucket, that really facilitates our happiness. And we're going to be in a happiness mindset if we are aware of what our needs are and also what the needs of others are. It actually doesn't cost much. Happiness is delivered in the smallest of gestures, and it is conveyed in the tiniest of compliments, and just being aware and mindful of other people and what their needs are and contributing to their happiness has a beautiful flow back effect on us, and it will increase our happiness too. So those are the 6 little tips on cultivating an attitude of happiness. A lot of it is about choice. A lot of it is about deciding from the get-go that you will lean into positivity, that you will adopt a mindset of happiness. And I do trust that this will increase your mental health, and it will increase your sense of resilience, creativity, intrinsic reward in your job and your parenting roles or in your caring roles or whatever you're doing in your world. And remember, you deserve to be happy, and you deserve to enjoy your life. And from that space, it will be easy to spread happiness across to the people that you love. And so have a beautiful day. Don't forget to click the hashtag so that you can check out what other clinicians are saying about happiness and hopefully start letting that happiness tank overflow. Have a great day.